Buddhists talk about three things that are, I don't know what they call them, like kind of the challenges of our human existence. And those were greed was like the first one, and they had words for them that I didn't write down.
Phil Phails at philosophy.
Buddhist words.
They had words for them.
They had different words than I'm saying.
Right. They have technical vocabulary.
It was there. I could pronounce them, but I didn't write them down, so I don't know them. And you guys wouldn't understand them anyway. So you want to find?
Or you would. I mean, Phil's making assumptions about who you are that may or may not be true.
Yeah, that's true. Y'all
don't harsh on him for it.
Yeah,
he's trying.
Greed. You got the word for that one? It's under when we first get to Buddhism, and he talks about the three different: greed, hatred, and delusion. And then he talks about the remedy for those three being generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom.
I remember this, yeah.
Right before we start talking about the Anana Sutra, or Anana Sutta. Is it Sutta?
I mean, it's both.
Yeah. And right before that, they were talking about there being some kind of like some balance or some weighing of wealth over virtue or wisdom, and saying that people were going for material prosperity at the expense of spiritual, at the cost of spiritual poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were talking about earlier, that wealth, and what we were both talking about earlier, was that wealth separates people. There's less connection, less socializing when you have wealth. Extreme wealth, at least.
Okay, I found the part we were talking about.
What's the word for greed?
Lobha, Lobha.
Lobha.
Right.
What's the word for hatred?
Dosa.
Dosa.
And delusion is Moha.
Moha.
I mean, I may be pronouncing those terribly.
But you guys take it easy on Grant. He's just a normal guy trying to pronounce whatever language that is. What language is that, you think?
This is Pali.
Pali.
And Pali looks like Sanskrit because it's kind of like a later, it's almost like medieval Latin to classical Latin. It's a later version of Sanskrit, but it's what earliest Buddhist scriptures are written in. So, yeah, I'm going to read just briefly this. I don't know if I need to read it. And then
go ahead. You want to read it?
The Buddhist path to liberation, therefore, involves an inward transformation of the individual in which the mental defilements, and I just want to stop there. Mental defilements.
Yeah.
And I sometimes what I appreciate about the Buddhist analysis is it doesn't hold back. Like, these things are poison.
They corrupt you.
Right. They corrupt you.
Yeah.
And part of what I like the idea about mental defilements is it's not like something that's yours that you're being asked to give away. It's something that's understood to be a way you have come to be that is a poison that has entered your system, and your true self needs to remove to be able to reach its authentic selfhood. Like, if you want to use that language of self.
It's kind of like an idea of a bug that's gotten on you, or a rash that you've gotten that you've got to cure yourself of.
In which the mental defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion are gradually overcome through the cultivation of non-greed, a Lobha, non-hatred,
loving
a Dosa, and non-delusion, Moha.
Yeah.
And in their positive formulations, generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Yeah, I can get with that. Like, I can get with that, right? Like, and I think at its root, there is an element of Buddhism that is rooted in turning away from the world, right? Which I don't find that to be a way to live, right? And there are plenty of Buddhists who have taken that tradition and interpreted it in a very worldly, world-affirming way, right? And one of the things I think we need to understand about traditions of thought and of religion is that they're big and complex, and lots of people do lots of things with them, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the questions is how do you get from what I think was an original vision, which was pull away from the world, become a monk, become part of this orientation toward enlightenment. If you can't do that, sure, do something else, but eventually it's so you can be reborn to be a monk, right?
Yeah.
To become the kind of world affirming Buddhism that you see in a figure like Thich Nhat Hanh, right? Who, even though he is a monk, is not saying become a monk, right?
Yeah.
He's saying find the space in your life to have true happiness, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's through this sort of incision in thought, right? This ability to really boil it down to these key things. And I do think, like, in my thinking through all the moral philosophy I've read and all, the heart, and both in the philosophical tradition and in the religious traditions, the heart of it seems to be, if you want to have a better world, learn to be generous, right? Learn to not necessarily reject that you have good things or even that you can acquire good things, but learn to share them, right? Learn to give to others without necessarily expecting that return, right? Yeah, when you're in a certain kind of, I'm not going to walk into the bank and say, hey, here's $100, bank, because I'm feeling generous today, right? You got to think about it like
Yeah.
certain places that are there. Live with loving kindness, right? And what is that? That's to me like, one, kindness, care, but a care that is rooted in your heart, that is rooted in making that connection with the other being as a human being. And then wisdom, you gotta have an ability to understand the world. What is wisdom the antidote to? It's the antidote to delusion. So it's not just sort of, well, I think when we say prajna here and we translate that as wisdom, sometimes we make this distinction between wisdom and knowledge in the West often, where wisdom is this thing that's like, oh, it's kind of wisdom. And it's like whether you're right or wrong is important because it's wisdom, right? But that's not how it's understood, I think, in this context. It's very much understood as a form of knowledge and a form of knowledge that can be right and can be wrong. So you got to get it right. You got to understand the world and you got to understand yourself, and you have to have that focus on truth along with your focus on love and along with your focus on generosity. What's not in that is justice, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's just good to put there, right? That's one of the things to note. It is part of what Thich Nhat Hanh, I think, says in Living Buddha, Living Christ, is what he learned from the Christian tradition was justice and the role of justice in building a just world in leading to what he saw as what he was trying to do as a Buddhist. But yeah, anyway, sorry to go on a digression there.
That's perfect. That's what we're talking about.